everyone, this is Rancer here, and welcome to my updated regional deck profile. Last month I mentioned I was going to a regional and been practicing for it. It was originally 60 card Ogdoadic Mitsurugi, inspired by Dragon Soul's top 64 YCS Houston list, yes, and a couple of other topping lists that have been topping since then. But it's went through a lot, as you can tell here. Actually, we have added in a fiendsmith engine. We have toned down the deck to 55 cards now, and we have rechanged some of the ratios of certain cards there and added some new stuff into the mix. So, as a result of it, this is what we ended up playing at the final regional event, and I did pretty good at it. It had 84 entrants. I got 17th place at the regional, going 5-2. But what's actually pretty surprising was my two losses all were very close game threes, and they could have went either way. Um, I did make a misplay in both those two games that probably cost me both of them, but I'll get to those in the matchup section later in the video. But I will rest assured that if I had won at least one of them, I very likely could have maybe topped at this event with this list here, as you can see. But I was pretty proud of myself actually at the event. I have not performed that good in like Odyssey a while actually. Because last couple of regionals I have performed very poorly. In one of them I played a tier 0 deck and I performed so poorly in that playing there. But this one I have performed the best I think in so long. The last highest placement I ever got in regionals from almost 10 years of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Was 15th place at Winnipeg regionals with Zephyr and Dimion during toss format. And this is probably my highest placement at 17th at the Calgary regionals of 84 players. So I'm pretty happy with myself. I played extremely good all day. I played really good the whole entire day. Barely misplayed. I only bricked it twice the entire event, and the only one of those bricks actually did matter. Good. Every other time, I always opened insanely good custom hands that would break any board and legit just make insanely strong boards and play through the majority of hand traps. So I'm pretty happy with how I performed at the regional, despite some couple misplays, which we'll get to later. But for now, let's get to the deck. As you can see here, I separated the order of the cards. So I start with the engines, then go to the non-engine last. So start with the fiendsmith engine. It's only a 5-card engine. We're playing only 2 engraver, 1 lacrima, 1 sanct, and 1 paradise. Paradise is self-explanatory with these two. We originally tested. I want to point out something important. One of my playtest partners, Josh, um, he actually suggested the fiendsmith engine, so I bought his, and I managed to get my own fiendsmith cards in the regional, so I could rarity bump them and give him back his fiendsmith cards. But we originally started with 3 engraver, and we decided to only go with 2, because realistically, you do the first one to search Sanct, and then you get the second one out of the deck with Lacrima, or if you want to play around Imperm, you can summon out the second Lacrima and just get access to Hiking Caesar that way, so you play around Imperm that way. But, so these were self-explanatory, but I know people are going to question, why am I playing Fiendsmith Sanct instead of Tract and Lurie? There's a couple of factors for this one about why I don't play Tract and Lurie. Now, don't get me wrong, those two cards are incredibly strong, but there's some big drawbacks about them. Number one, Lurie is a pretty awful brick to draw in your hand if you don't have anything to discard from your hand. It's the same reason why Lockhart can sometimes suck to open your opening hand. Now, if you open a level 4 extended to go with it, that's where you'll find because you can notice the same engraver in the grave. Then you just make King of Frowns, Search, Hopper, and you go for full Fiendsmith, Mitsurugi combo for that position. But also another pretty important one here, actually. It's a normal you don't always want to summon. I'd rather normal summon either Noya, Saji, or any of my Mitsurugi monsters than Lurie or even Lacrima to some extent. Secondly, Tract plays very hard to Droll. Yes, if you summon it, you get access to Fiendsmith endboard and on the Droll. But if you do Engraver and you search Tract, the Tract is completely dead on the Droll. Whereas Sanct Hank actually does not have that downside, actually. If you draw Engraver, you pitch it, and you add Sanct, and they draw you, that's actually fine. You just summon Sanct, get a token, you go to Rectrim, and you get access to Fiendsmith setup. And that is really good under Droll. And that's why I personally think this might be the preferred way to play Fiendsmith if Droll is very common in the game right now. Now, can you still get away with Tract and Lurie even with Droll in the metagame? Absolutely yes, you definitely can still get away with it, but it has a massive risk factor into Droll, and that was the goal we wanted to do with this deck. Is we needed to have a good plan B that had Suju in the deck, but most importantly, a plan B that played on the Droll. And this Sanct was the feature engine with Sanct was the perfect one. This role. And for people that might be wondering about the downside of Sanct, where you can only attack with Fiends for the rest of the turn, I want to point straight up that it has come up a couple times in testing, but in the actual regional, this downside never really came up because I often would use it to try to survive as long as I possibly can. And another thing I want to point out too is my fiends and monsters getting killed by card effects. This came up a lot. I actually was able to win against a matchup because I chained it to my own gravity to play around a detonator. It's really, really strong. I'm just saying it's a very good card. I think people should consider playing this card. Really, I think people should consider it. Paradise, I will sort of say this. I have opened this, I think, one or two times in the original, but one of them actually did matter, and the other one didn't matter because I just pitched it away from my head anyway. Yeah, I'll get to the matchups later when I mention it, but trust me, this actually that only came up one time where actually opening this in hand actually didn't matter. Now let's get to the Ogdo engine. We have the three semi-bricks. We have Nephalibus, the Ogdoadic Overlord, Aaron, King of the Ogdoadic King, and Curse the Ogdoadic Light. These are the only three minor bricks. These are the only three garnets, or I would say more so like minor garnets in the context of the deck. Now, the reason why I say this is because you can easily dump these in the graveyard. So, like, Nunu can dump Nephalibus, you can dump Curson Aaron with Naya, and you have Snaker in the dump, you have Daybreak Spirit Effect, you have Warlord, you have the Mitsurugi cards to dump them. Like, you have a ton of ways to dump them even from the hand, so they're not always hard to garnet. Did I really ever brick with them? I think I've only bricked on like one of them, which was Nephalibus. It was because my head wasn't super good. Wasn't like super good, but the opponent didn't open great either, so it like didn't matter too much anyway. But these cards are very important for the deck in several factors. Now, in my opinion, you could easily just take out the Ogdo engine and literally not even play these cards. This deck is definitely playable without it. So, for example, if you take out like legitimately like, literally, not even joking. If you took out the whole Octo engine, including the Snake Ray, the deck would go down to like 43. Like, hold on, let me see. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The deck would go down to like literally 42 cards, and it would function perfectly fine. And so you don't really need this engine. But the reason I play this engine is because of its synergy with Mitsurugi. Okay, so in the context, Aaron and Curse are both low-rate reptiles. So you can instantly tribute them away for Mitsurugi Retro to get access to Murakumo. And since Aaron and Curse can tribute monsters for cost to summon themselves from the grave, you can literally just tribute off the Mitsurugi, and then the Mitsurugi Ritual comes back, and then you add a follow-up card to keep playing. It's pretty good. And also, Noya also it has super good versatility in the deck. That first one up is that it sends Curse often, and the reason it's important is because as long as you have a good normal summon, like say any of these Mitsurugi monsters, preferably Sachi or Amasa, and you open Noya, you do Noya to dump Curse, you summon the Mitsurugi monster, but you don't trigger its effect. Then you do Curse to tribute it off, and summon Curse to your field. Then you do Chainlink 1. Any of these two monsters, like say Aramasa, for example, is Chainlink 1 to add a Habakiri, and you do Chainlink to Curse to summon Naya. And at that point, you then do Naya effect. And at that point, you select Naya. Naya then adds Daybreak, and then you just go full fucking combo from that position. You just set up full. You then set up full fiendsmith combo with IP setup, and you just get that, and you do that while under. And keep in mind, you do all this while under, or while you still have Habakiri's hand, and you didn't trigger Habakiri's hand effect. This is all setting up an anti-Nib that then you can just proceed with just full on combo. It is really, really freaking good. Like card. And on top of that, Noya is actually a good normal summon, unironically enough, because since we are playing the Fiendsmith engine, if you normal summon Noya and then you search, say, Ogdoadic Water Lily, now you can then adjust your line depending on when they draw you. If they draw you on Noya's search effect, you just dump Night Sword Serpent and then you go Close Moon and you go to Fiendsmith combo from that position. Or, let's say if the opponent doesn't draw you, you dump Nunu in the graveyard with Water Lily, make King of Thrones, add Habakiri, full Mitsurugi combo. And the Mitsurugi combo also goes into Fiend's. So regardless of when you get hand trapped, you will likely always lean into Fiendsmith combo. And that's what's cool about, and that's why I like this engine a lot. Because say back to the scenario of Noya plus a good normal summon here, if you get hit on Droll before when Noya's search effect is about activates, not when it solves, but when it just activates, you just use the Curse of Noya and you just go close to heaven, Red Crib, full Fiendsmith combo. This is the goal we wanted to do for the deck, is to have a good, resilient deck that not only was very resilient to hand traps, but most importantly, was resilient to Droll and Lockbird and was able to still play even when Droll was dropped on you. Well, unless your hand order is very mid or bad, that loses pretty hard to Droll. Most of my hands always played under Droll pretty good. Just like I said, I only bricked it twice. The edge was just so good. I didn't care if I got hit by Droll. I would just force it out and then literally just make a good end board. Now, I'm going to talk about Nuno for a sec here. Nuno realistically could maybe be taken out for a different card, but I like Nuno a lot in the deck in terms of one factor is the utility it provides. So first of all, being able to send a Dark Reptile is actually very good in deck. Most of the time, you often will send Nephalobis to the grave, because Nephalobis can revive herself in the graveyard if a monster got sent from the hand of deck to the graveyard. Now, you do get Reptile locked, but do keep in mind, if you got Mitsurugi Engine online, it's perfectly fine if you Reptile lock yourself, because let's be real, the Mitsurugi Engine is just so powerful as a payoff that it's like, it's perfectly fine, honestly. It's perfectly fine. Yeah. And on top of all that, but that's not the only thing. You could even dump some of the Mitsurugi monsters in your graveyard, and you could do some funny lines. So, for example, if you open Kusanagi plus Nunu, you do Nunu dump Hapakiri, normal Kusanagi, add Hapakiri. Then you just proceed to make king, and you just add probably Murakuma or Futsu, depending on what's in your head. Or if you want to, you could just add Noya, and then Noya you just dump the curse, tribute off the king, make this, and then you just proceed with freaking full combo in that position. Like this simple 2-card combo is full Mitsurugi fiendsmith combo. And you set up the Ogdoadic engine online, so now you can just set up the whole engine and just repeat the engine over and over again. It's honestly very, very good. I actually really, really like Nuke's utility. And great thing is, he's still a level 4 body that's repeatable. Well, it makes king, you can link climb into reptile links with it, but most importantly, it's a repeatable level 4 body that summons itself in the periphery, so you can use it as ritual fodder for Mitsurugi Ritual. So it's actually a pretty good card. Now, I also do want to mention one thing I forgot to mention about Aaron is, I would say of the Ogdoadic cards in this engine, Aaron is the tech first I run. But this card is a maybe, is in the maybe category of maybe getting taken out. Because realistically, I've only made Aaron, I think, only a couple times in the regional. And one of them did come up, but the other two times it just didn't do enough because I just didn't have access. But it's mainly because I just didn't have access to any other interaction other than this card, though, which was kind of a bit of an issue. I will not gonna lie. So I'll explain the point behind this card. So a few factors. Number one, it's a live reptile for Noya to dump. So if you already have Curse and you have not used Noya's hand effect, you just dump Arrow into the graveyard this way. Pretty good card. So that is already relatively good. This requires 2 monsters to tree with the summon itself in grave. Personally, not even a huge problem. You always swarm the board with Mitsurugis, with Futsu, and if any of them haven't survived, you just do Arrow up to tree with 2 of them off, and then you just get them back, and then you just get them back if one of them's a ritual monster. You just search a shit ton of fallout, and your opponent just can't contest it. But the main thing is the 2 main effects of the guy. So the first one is, if your opponent adds any card to the hand, except their drop is a damage step, you randomly send 1 card from the hand to graveyard. It's essentially a hand rip effect. Now the reason why, this effect is kind of the main reason why I teched it, because of one specific type of cards that you may know is common in the metagame right now, and that is the Molcharmy cards. So as we all know, you have Perulia, which lets the opponent draw 1 if you summon from the hand, Fool Us, which lets them draw if you summon from the deck or X deck, and Meows, they draw 1 every time you summon from the graveyard or banish summon. Now, why do I say the Aeron is actually a pretty nice tech choice? Well, the reason why is because they draw as an effect. If you have Aeron as a part of the end board, or you make it within the least amount of summons while playing around a Molcharmy, you can actually mitigate one of the draws that they do by just mitigating it. And you could potentially hit a really, really good card out of their hand and have a chance to do so. The other factor too is, since most people will often use a hand trap to try to stop you, if you literally force them down to 3 cards in their hand, like let's say maybe the first one they activate under Murakumo and you make them discard, if they don't discard another card so their hand trap resolves, you just keep playing the game. You literally just keep on playing, and if they do decide for whatever freaking reason to just dump a card, keep adding for some reason, you just dump a card from their hand. This is very good if they're really low on cards in their hand. So let's say you're playing against Ryzo, And say they have 3 after your first turn ends, and they draw their 4th card in the draw. They activate a 7th Tachyon, they add EXT, and then they put 1 card back. So they went -1, but they got EXT. So now they have 3 cards, 2 unknown, 1 EXT. You then trigger Aaron's effect. Because they have 3 cards in the hand, you have around a 33.33% chance to hit 1 card, to hit the EXT out of the hand. Now, if they were down to 2 cards, actually, you had a 50-50 chance. You could probably tell, judging by this, that this is the reason why Aaron is a decent tech choice in the meta right now. Because a lot of decks search a lot, and they will always use their hand traps to stop your lines. Because hand traps are common right now. And Murakumo is a hand rip, and if you combine Aaron's with hand rip, that's a double hand rip. This is very good when they're low on cards in the hand. You just limit whatever they search, and if they're really low, you have a very high chance to hit a good card. Now, in the second phase of a monster the opponent controls goes to the graveyard by a card effect, you add a Light Dark Reptile on your deck or graveyard to your hand. This is also pretty important, because if you get it by Droll, you can just add back follow-up from the graveyard instead of from your deck, so you have a way to search follow-up while playing around Droll. But most importantly, this has synergy with Murakumo. So you can summon Murakumo during their turn with Futsu, with this on the board, you kill it, and then you do Aaron to add back one of your follow-up cards. My personal favorite one to add back is Kusanagi, so I can normal it, add back Prayers, add back Purification, or any of those cards, and just play around all their cards. Because of these factors, you have essentially a resource loop with Murakumo, where you consistently keep recycling resources and then get out their entire board, and if they attempt to keep trying to add it, you just limit their options with Aaron. Now, that being said, however, there is a reason I say it's the maybe tier of getting taken out. Because unfortunately, I rarely ever made this card a lot. I've only made it a couple times, and only one of them wasn't an okay-ish card. But it just wasn't enough because I just didn't have any other interactions that stopped him from playing the game, or at least slow down his gameplay. Every other time, I just never made it because my board was already too good, and their hand was just too big to like realistically for the Aaron's hand rip effect to be that impactful. And the other reason is because of new decks that have entered the metagame. We have Orcust Mitsurugi, which is a deck that actually does benefit from Aaron's random discard. Now, while it's true that yes, Orcust Engine does tend to discard at least once or twice a lot of the time. Almost if you do hit one of their Orcust monsters, they might be forced to discard a good card in the hand. But that card was the reason why I always cited this out against matches like that. I don't want to give them a random chance to hit a good card out of the hand that they could potentially just use the next turn on the same turn. So, say for example, if I'm playing against Malice, if they attempt to draw one off Fua or they attempt to search one time, yes, Aaron could potentially hit a card from the hand. The problem, however, is if I hit a Malice main deck monster and they have a Bistro March here, they just set up a play and I'm forced to like interact with those cards. So Aaron's effect actually ends up being a bad drawback half the time. Because there's just some matches just isn't playable. Like Orcust I mentioned, you just get them a free starter, and if you hit play against Crystal, you just get them an absolutely super free fucking resource. That's really bad because in that deck you really don't search a lot in Crystals. That's probably the worst matchup for Aaron. And another problem about Aaron is that it's not the best card going second. It doesn't really help you break boards going second. Whereas going first, it's perfectly fine. But going second, it literally doesn't do anything. So what I ended up doing a lot of my side deck patterns is if I'm going second, I want to prioritize opening my blowout cards more often than my other cards. So due to that reason, I would often take out Aaron going second. And if there was a matchup he wasn't good to, I'll always take him out for those matchups. For a different side deck engine, and really, which is kind of shows to show that, and also it is technically a brick. So if you don't open a way to get this to the graveyard or a way to take advantage of it being in your hand, you kind of unfortunately just can't really play, and that's kind of the problem. Is this card just becomes dead. Similar to like Curse and Nephobus have the same downside, but it is a song. But now, despite all these things said, there is a possibility I could keep this card in the deck. I just often will side it out, but in board states, where in simplified board states, it's a very good lingering effect, and it always consistently provides follow-up and limits your opponent's resources. Which combined with Murakumo is essentially double hand but you just guarantee contest whatever they top deck with Murakumo. Or if they do, summon in the grave, you just do Murakumo to force them to discard, And then if they do top deck something, you just have other interactions to deal with it. You have the Raigeki, and then Arrow will just add back a follow-up monster from the grave. You just consistently like when you have the engine rotation with Arrow on board, you have effectively a strong resource load that just consistently provides follow-up, no matter what the opponent top decks. And it's always very hard for the opponent to break it. This is why Mitsurugi is so powerful in a simplified game state. Their board is just impossible to break if you sequence your interactions correctly. So that's the Ogdoadic. So now let's get to finish off the Ogdoadic engine. Now I've mentioned it. Again, Aaron might get taken out, but I think I may keep it. I just often cite it as the main thing. There are some matches that wasn't very helpful, but it is good in theory, though. But it is a solid card in theory. Next up, Ogdoadic, Foolish Barrow, and if you have 5 more different names, you special from the grave. Daybreak, busted card. If this card ever got touched in a future ban list, I actually could see it happening. Card's insane in Mitsurugi. You just tribute any of their Mitsurugis off, get tokens, and the Mitsurugi will automatically replace itself with a new card. It's an insane card. Like, this card is absolutely insane. But we don't play 2, because realistically you only need the 1 copy to go off, and that's realistically it. But it is very good. That is the reason why we took out a couple cards. So like we originally played 2 Nunu, 3 pre-prep, 2 of this, and then we had I did 1 engraver that. We just took out some of those cards to put deck 55 because they felt redundant. They weren't really necessary. Mitsurugi engine, almost is self-explanatory. You could definitely get away with 2 almost. I think 2 is the optimal max optimal ratio, but I think 1's perfectly fine. 1 Kusanagi self. Saji, this is the one I actually do think you should play it 2 in this build, because you want to always have access to Saji as much as humanly possible in the deck. Then you have 2 Murakumo. Realistically, you could probably just get away with 1, but I've really been liking 2 Murakumo because I always search the second one as a follow-up in case the first one gets answered. Good. And keep in mind, that's the other reason why we only play 1 Daybreak. If I had 2 Daybreak, I could get away with just 1 Murakumo, use 1 to recycle it, but since we're doing this other ratio, I really have a break for the sake of Murakumo. The mainly thing is, I just want to have a good target to like tribute off prayers if necessary, or to summon off Mitsurugi Ritual. Boboku was insane. Raigeki and a hand rep, really crazy card. Then we have 3 Habakiri, self-explanatory. You need to maximize on stars as much as possible without breaking too much, so Habakiri is fantastic for this. 1 Futsu and 1 Natural Serpent. And pre-preparation rights, I'm going to count this as a Mitsurugi card because oftentimes you always search Mitsurugi Mirror or Habakiri, or if you already have Habakiri, you just add Murakumo instead. And then you just play from that position to see what happens. 3 prayers. I'm going to straight up say this, people. People will tell you Habakiri is the MVP of the Mitsurugi deck. And yes, Habakiri is an insanely broken custom card, but he has nothing compared to the power level of prayers. Prayers, in my opinion, is the real MVP in the Mitsurugi deck. It is legitimately the most busted card in this archetype. Legitimately busted. It is it's a rota for the deck. It's a monster-born / summon from the hand effect. You can choose to tribute up Reptile for cost, so you can dodge target effects with this. And you trigger multiple effects at once, so you can do chain blocking sequences. It's follow-up. It adds follow-up. But the most support one, it's a quick play card. Quick play spell. You can play around Droll in the draw phase if you have the right combo. So, for example, open Saji plus this, tribute draw phase, tribute Saji, add Armasa, Sun Armasa, chainlink 1 Saji, chainlink 2 Armasa. Armasa adds Murakumo, Saji adds Mitsurugi Ritual. Guess what? You now got a level 4 body on the board. You then do Ritual, summon Murakumo, add summon, send Kusanagi and Night Sword, Kusanagi add back Ritual, Natural Serpent, summon itself, go into either King of Pharaohs, add Noya, Dome Noya, Curse, or if you don't want to walk too far to Nib, or if you want to bait out the Nib route, you link off Narsor plus the Armasa, go to Closed Heaven, go fiendsmith combo. Go bait out the Bureau that way, or bait out the handtrap interaction pieces. This card is insanely broken. It is literally the best card in the archetype. I 100% could see Mitsurugi Prayers going to 1 on the next balance. Maybe not this upcoming balance, but maybe on the balance afterwards, I 100% could see Prayers going to 1. This card is broken as hell beyond belief. Is the most insane card in the whole deck. Really, really crazy card. Mitsurugi Ritual, just 2. I definitely would love to play 3, and I could see myself maybe take out Magaton and put back in a 3rd Mitsurugi Ritual for this role. Or if not, I could probably just take out Magaton and just put the deck at 54 cards instead. But otherwise, the 2 Mitsurugi Ritual has been perfectly fine. It is sometimes a brick if you don't open the proper target for it, but when you play a Ritual deck, that sometimes is bound to happen. Speaking of, let's talk about Magatama. I will say straight up, this is the one card in my deck, main deck, I 100% likely will take out. Because this card just rarely ever came up. It only came up in one time, but it was already on the end board that was already so good that it literally did not make a huge difference at all. Because my board was already good. And because of that factor, it was a win more card. And in most of the cases, I much rather have a different piece of interaction than this card. And if I wanted to search it, I was probably in a bad board state where I just couldn't break an opponent's board. So like, and every time I side in a card, I oftentimes would side this out for a blowout non-engine card because I would rather prioritize that over a searchable card that is kind of conditional. Now, don't get me wrong, Bagatelle is not too bad of a card. It does out Pacific cards that your Mitsurugi cards can't deal with. Like, you can out Floodgates with this card. You can out big fucking monsters that you just can't deal with, even with Mirakumo, who might not be big enough to get over. Um, Secondly, this allows you to also dodge target as well, which is a decent one. But another one being that it also gives you another way to summon Mirakumo. So if you have, say, Destroy in the field and use Destroy's Omnigate, you can then just go ahead and do Magaton to out a back row card they have. By You can then just go and do this to tribute this and go to Mirakumo, and then and then you do Mirakumo to Raigeki, you do Destroy to out a leftover back row card they might set up early in the game. But other than those factors, the card just never came in practice. It always got sided out, and when I did side in, I never had a reason to search it. So realistically, I do think Ragdoll is a decent card, a solid card at that, but I don't think it's really needed. I think it's a win more card in this board build that I'm running. So I like it going to be taken out either to put the deck at 54, or I could maybe take it out and put in either a third Mitsurugi Ritual or put back in a third pre-prep, just to max out a consistency. I'm leaning towards, however, Mitsurugi Ritual or just play it to 54. I'll debate about that for now. But next up, Mitsurugi Purification. This is perfect find the main deck. In Mitsurugi Ogdoadic, you actually do want to have this in your deck. Because if you could pitch this out of hand, hey, guess what? You got a good power card that allows you to play through targeting and plays around Bestials, which is a very big deal. Because Bestials are a freaking problem for Ogdoadic, because this deck cannot play very good under Bestials. But this card allows you to do it, which is great. And it's a searchable, repeatable Omnigate. I cannot say anymore else. But I will say, similar to Fiendsmith and Paradise, if I do go second, I will take these out every time. Because I do want to see my block going second cards as much as humanly possible. Next up, Triple Snake Ring. Really insane good power play card. I have actually won 2 rounds because of this card. Once I forced out every interaction client Ash, I would just save Snicker as my last power play and just set up my Ogdoadic engine, and I just kill him on the crack, and then I just OTK them from that position. Like, no joke, Snake Rain is a very good power card. Yes, it's a -2 in card advantage, but you do need to remember, the Ogdoadic engine also provides you extra cards and card advantage to compensate the discard, and your Mitsurugis also do the same thing. And on top of that, similar to Nunu, you could dump any of the Mitsuri rituals and use Merit to revive them back from the graveyard. So now you have, so it's not only a power play for your Ogdoadic engine, it also can sets up unique Mitsurugi combos you don't have access to in any other build of the deck, or at least any other build of Mitsurugi. Like, really great card. Not bad really, however, because unfortunately the only deck that can really use this is the Ogdoadic version. If you take out the whole Ogdoadic matchup plus Snake Ring, you go to 4th and you're just playing Fiendsmith Mitsurugi. That's why I said that the Ogdoadic engine is not really necessary. But I'll straight up say, I definitely won 2 rounds because of Snake Ring going off successfully because I forced out every interaction prior. Car is crazy. Like, you literally have to save an answer, or if you want to bail out Ash, you just do this first by pitching a brick. If they Ash it, you just do full Mitsurugi Fiendsmith combos from that position. And you don't have to worry about Ash anymore. Now let's get to the non-engine. Let's start with the highly impactful non-engine. These are the blood non-engine I prioritize. Other than 6 of the non-engine is mainly just mid-impact, every other non-engine in the deck is mainly just high impact. They're just blowouts. So we have triple Nibiru, triple Fua, triple Droll, 1 talent, 1 call by. Nib is super crazy if you set up a Mitsurugi endboard. You just tribute all you guys, immediately hit trigger their effects and search follow-up, crazy card. And if you have the Magatama set up, like I mentioned, if you still play, you can ritual summon the Miracle you searched in your hand, and you just summon this tribute over the Nibiru you just used, or Nibiru Toge if you were hit by Nibiru. You just make Rakuma Raigeki. Full self-explanatory, literally the best Voltron in the game right now. It's a mandatory staple card. Triple Droll. I hate saying this, people. As much as I hate this card so much, this is a mandatory, this is a necessary evil in the game right now. If this card did not exist, or let's say if the card somehow does get limited or gets banned, Mitsurugi literally becomes a tier 0 deck. Like, I am straight up saying it. This card is the only hand trap that keeps the deck in check. Every other hand trap, Mitsurugi just straight up just beats completely. Like, the brew, you don't care about. You can easily set up a good board that forces the nib out anytime. Moltres, yes, you might give them 1 or 2 draws, but a lot of your hands, depending on your hand, you can easily play around any of the Moltres by only giving them 1 or 2 draws from one and max, or maybe not even give them a single draw. Yes. Now, granted, this does depend on the build of Mitsurugi. Against Rise of Mitsurugi, yeah, Perulia still really shits on that deck a lot, because that deck always summons from the hand, so that's guaranteed. Against Orcust, Fula is very powerful, since you pretty much do guarantee get at least 2 draws every time. Okay. But outside of certain builds, pure Mitsurugi just completely does not care about the Moltres. You can easily play through that. Droll, Mitsurugi in a sense can play around Droll, but it's kind of difficult because they have to commit to a search eventually. So unless your hand is super custom made and you can easily beat a Droll, I just don't really see a reason to do this. Like, you know what I mean? But Droll is a mandatory evil in the game. You need Droll and Lockbird to beat Mitsurugi. If you don't draw Droll, it's a terrible time. Now, originally, I will say, in my testing, I wanted to try to find a place that has Salesman and play that over Droll, because I don't want to lose to Droll, so I figured let's play Salesman. Plus, Salesman at least has utility that it can function as a decent going second board breaker. But it actually turns out, even though I was able to find a place to have Salesman at the region and bought it, my deck was already finalized with the 3 Droll, so I just could not make that change. What I will say, however, about Droll and Lockbird is I have drawn it almost nearly every game I drew it. I always drew it. It was always impactful. It did not matter the matchup. I always drew it. It was always very impactful. The only time it wasn't impactful was against something like, say, Regenesis Kashtira. That was the only matchup this card really didn't do anything versus into unless they started with their Rota card first. But yeah, this card against everything else was super impactful. It was such a deadly card. This card, unfortunately, as much as I hate it, it's a necessary evil of the game because of Mitsurugi. Talent call, but I don't want to explain these. Blowout cards punishes hand traps, and also very good talent, great board breaker. Also punishes the hand traps and hand rips you. That's great. Now the mid impact cards, these are solid cards in the meta game right now, but they are mid impact because these cards by themselves don't do anything. They are, however, very powerful in every other hand trap though. Like Nibiru plus Droll into Mitsurugi is so strong. Like, you just force them to play awkwardly on their first search, and if they get that far, you just nib them, and you just Nibiru them, and they just don't really get access. They're always forced to go into prayers to pretty much try to play around Droll and set up an interaction on the next turn. Ash, I'd say this is the worst hand trap in this non-engines category of cards, but I am main decking it pretty much because since I'm anticipating to fight against Rogue, this is a really good card versus Rogue. But most importantly, this is good into Fiendsmith since you hit Recurrent with this, but also very important, it also hits the Moltres. You need answers to Moltres because otherwise, you can get absolutely fucked over by Moltres. Imperm, pretty good card. Solid card. Unlike Ash, however, this is a pretty solid card to get on the draw. I don't want to explain why. It also plays around Talent and Thrust, which is very important. I'm actually glad I played this over Valor, because otherwise I would just walk into Thrust almost all day. Now, for the extra deck, Piece of Desiree, Necrocrypt, don't need explain. Hiking Caesar, don't need explain. Agmante, don't need explain. Sequence of Record, I don't need explain. Same with Claw 7. I don't need to explain that. That's the Fiendsmith engine. Chaos Angel, very easy card to make. Obviously, you have Engraver, which is the level 6, and you have level 4 Lacrima, and you have the level 4 main deck guys that can all synchro into this card, which is also self-explanatory. But did you know that because of Noya, you actually have a second way to get to it? You can do send Noya, send Curse, tribute a monster off your board for Curse, summon Noya, Noya adds Daybreak. Now, with Daybreak, instead of tripping Curse like it normally would, you actually trip off one of the copies of Noya. You get 2 tokens, you use one of the tokens and treat it as a tuner, and you synchro that, because the tokens are level 2, so boom, you make Chaos Angel this way. You bash a card, then you link off the token to Link Spark, and you do Fiendsmith combo. And you do full Fiendsmith combo. But another cool one is, if you revive back Nephilim by, say, Water Lily, Nephilim will revive my Chaos Angel, and Chaos Angel's bash effect is actually not once per turn. So I have that played against Labyrinth. I used that combination, I bashed it 2 cards off his board. It was pretty good, not gonna cap. Really good card. Very good. I made this only I think twice, but it was always a very impactful card. It just did a lot. I 100% would keep this in the deck. If anything, if you're playing Mitsurugi Fiendsmith, I actually think you should main deck this card. It's way too good not to play this card in the deck. Game Farms. I hope this doesn't get bad. It would massively hurt Ogdoadic engine quite significantly because they always make 1 or 2 King of the Pharaohs every time. But if it does get banned or limited, I completely understand why. Because Mitsurugi is just such a strong archetype. But you definitely always should play at least 1 King just in case. Um, let's talk about the rest of the links that aren't Fiendsmith related. So, SP, IP is self-explanatory. Haggard's self-explanatory. I've made this a lot as a drop card as a part of my endboard. After I dug through my whole deck, I would then just bash one random reptile and then just draw a card. Oftentimes I would draw a non-engine because I went through most of my engine already by that point. It happened every single time. I'm not gonna cap. Echidna, probably not really a needed card, but I like it as an alternative way to get the Hobbit Carry in case you can't get the King, or you want to out Pacific Monster with the attack buff and you want to Rattle lock yourself in the extra deck and just prioritize this. Which realistically, I think that's probably fine, all things considered. I think it's usually a fine downside, because like I said before about Netflix's Rattle lock, as long as you get access to the Mitsuri engine in rotation, you're perfectly fine if you Rattle lock yourself, because the Mitsuris are the payoff, so it's perfectly fine. But not needed. You can use the dates for something else. Now, I want to talk about Link Spire Self Explanatory. It helps you link climb into the moon off of a Daybreak token. Now, I want to talk about Dark. Dark, I will straight up say, I've only made Dark twice. And admittedly, yes, I did won games because of this card. But every other time, I never once made Dark. Dark just was never really needed. I did use it once against Mitsurugi to steal our monster and then search Habakiri or Murakuma, I mean. But get access to Murakuma, which is often pretty good. But I will say once Duelist Advance comes out, I almost never made the card, so I'm lucky to take this out for the new Gorgon Reptile Link 3 that comes out Duelist Advance. Because in my opinion, that with the IP set is gonna be crazy strong. To like get anything that's if it's in the same zone, it's gonna be crazy. Now for the side deck here, I'll go with my going first cards. These 6 are my blog going first cards. Double Judgment, Double Strike, 1 Summer Archfiend, 1 Mischief of the Gnomes. Mischief was originally Deep-Bearer, but since I already had Summer Archfiend, I decided last minute to add in Mischief. I will say, I never drew these cards or even got a way to get to them with Thrust, which is a bit annoying. But in theory, these are very powerful to the meta right now. Mr. Knows is self-explanatory. This is very powerful into Mitsurugi build, especially Mitsurugi being the biggest one. This is very powerful into it. It limits what they can pull off. You then have Summer Archfiend, which I did get hit by my first round opponent when he sided us in. Made it very awkward for me because I could not play around this and Nib at the same time that he searched with Gallagher. Yeah, trust me, people. Summer Archfiend is very strong. I actually do think at times it's better than D-Barrier. It with Fiendsmith was very common in the regional. This was a very powerful block card. It's just unfortunate I never drew the card, but it was self-explanatory. Now, Striker Warrior, on the other hand, these definitely came up a lot. And I did win a round or two from them. No, the rounds I did open them, they didn't really help too much because unfortunately my opponent just had too much gas. But these are very good blockouts that I think people should be side decking every time. Warring, in my opinion, is secretly, I think this is the best Solemn card. I know that sounds crazy to say considering the Judgment can answer. Now, Judgment, I would say, is the better Solemn card because Judgment can answer blood going second cards like Feather Dust or Lightstorm, whereas Warring Strike can't answer those. But Warring, in my opinion, deals with way more cards than deals with a ton of cards too. For example, this can hit Mitsurugi Ritual, but it can still get Inherent Summons again. But what's the point? These cost less life points, which is a big one. That's why I don't play Judgment anymore. It's just because Judgment's life point half cost is just so significant, especially when it's close to time. I like these more for less life points lost, and they hit about the same number of cards that Judgment can hit. Plus, I'm running 4 of them in a 55 card deck. I have a decent chance to at least draw one. Thrust, self-explanatory. You can search either you're going for first cards, or you can search you're going second cards here, which you see we play 2 Landstorm, 1 Feather Duster, 1 Wusu. I unfortunately never used it because I couldn't get to the card anyway. Never drew it, never searched it because I was already winning. But I do think it is worth side decking because having a searchable kaiju that tributes off your cards is very strong. The only thing I don't like about the card is that it does conflict with some of the non-gen we do run. It conflicts a bit with Fua. Well, maybe not so much Fua, but it does conflict with the Bureau if you top deck it. It conflicts with Droll, conflicts with Ash Blossom if you want to save it for a different effect. It's just pretty unfortunate though. But it's a very good block card and it's easily accessible if you can get that far, so it's very strong. Triple Lancia, this is mainly just for Malice. Also delegate Orcust. But most importantly, it's for Crystron and Malice specifically. But I will say, I never sided this in once. I did not fight against a single Malice or Crystron or Orcust deck. The only deck this was technically good into, technically quote unquote good into, was Castor Genesis. And even then, guess what? I didn't even side in this card. Now you could say, well, why didn't you side the same? Maybe Sinusin could have made an impact. But in my opinion, this card literally does nothing versus Regenis Castera. I've tried it versus it. This does legit nothing versus the deck. Yes, you can shut off the Castera card effects, but the problem is, Lancia can only stop that on the opponent's turn, not on your turn. So you have no way to protect your board or your extra deck from Unicorn or Fenrir. You have to deal with the Regenesis engine. If they get that shit online, you legit cannot do anything. The only time this is good versus the matchup is to contest their fob if you're out their board. And even then, all they have to do is just get their Regenesis back in the hand and legit just reset the whole entire board. Like, you literally cannot stop that deck. That Lancia, it has very little impact versus that deck, which is why I never sided in versus Castera Genesis. Now, if people has ever encountered that, go and let me know down below. Okay, so that's the deck profile. I'll go over the matchups quickly here because I wrote them out. I don't remember exactly what happened in every matchup, so please bear with me. I'll try to be as quick as possible. So bear with me if I don't remember everything. So my first round was against Orcust Mitsurugi. I won the Droll and I won that one 2-1 actually. So game one, I set up Futsu, Aaron, Murakumo, IP, Hiking Caesar, Paradise, Magatar, Prayers, Purification. Literally the board was unfucking breakable. His hand was super good and I just didn't really care too much. His board was super powerful, and I also had Droll in my hand. So I would set up a few pieces of a non-gen fraction, got called by. His hand was super good, but my board was way too powerful, so he scoops it. Game two, he sets up Mitsurugi endboard. I didn't have Droll at the time, so he sets a downgrade. Sets one. He does thrust after I use a hand trap. Sets up Simon Archfiend. And that unfortunately mattered because I could not go into fiendsmith engine because if I go into closed heaven, I'm locked out of links, and I was locked out of ritual, so I had to play super awkward around this board. I just could not beat the beautiful Star Archfiend. That combo was just so deadly. It just forced me to scoop. Game three was, however, where it got interesting. We both semi-bricked, but that was my first time breaking that event, right? But it didn't matter because he also bricked a lot. He tries to search one time. I hit his Habakiri. He does Habakiri to summon Saji. I hit it with an Ash Blossom. He tries searching. I do Droll. So, all he could make. No, actually, no, that's not what it was. I think it was EXT summoned first. He made. Oh, no, actually, no. Oh, actually, no, I did get the correct line. No. It was that. Mirror Logic. I hit him with a Droll. He makes Detonator. Or not. I don't remember what was the sequence in that at the beginning, but I know, like, past that turn, I did Engraver setup and everything. So he does Detonator, he kills off my Lakrimoff with the car effect, right? I do Sank's Grave effect and reset to my board, and then I just let him pass my turn. So he passes turn, I just let him do it. So then, on my next follow-up turn, I put back one of my Life Fiends with Engraver, and in response, I changed Sanct on the field. So now I got two bodies, and this played around Detonator on the board. I linked off the token into Linkspire, I made SP, and I targeted his Detonator. And unfortunately, since he doesn't want to permanently lose his Detonator, since, let's be real, Rise of Plug It is not played anymore, my opponent was forced to destroy his own Detonator, and I was okay with that, so I just go and let him kill it. And I just sent an SP with a couple pieces of non-engine. Unfortunately, he just didn't really have any of the good cards left, so he passed his turn again. This time around, I had Fiendsmith engine back online, and I top deck Saji with a dead Futsu plus a dead Nephobus, I think, or something like that. And I normal summon, so I revive by Engraver. It's normal Saji, and then I just summon out, let's see, I summon out Saji. I'll just try to remember here. Yeah, I summon Saji, I add Material Control, he draws me as his last card in his hand. And from that position, I had SP, I made Desiree Monday, and I just OTK'd him on the spot. I just straight up just OTK'd him right on the spot. Actually, no, the ritual was Murakumo. Yeah, that was a lot what allowed me to OTK on the spot. But yeah, was able to OTK right there. And managed to win that. Managed to win the title. Round two, I lose the title, and I play against but I do win the match. I play against Pure Heraldic, and yes, you heard me say that, Pure Heraldic. I when I saw that Griffin come down, I literally thought it was Raizo Heraldic. I was so screwed because I would have done my full hand rip. But it turns out, no. He did tell me originally he was playing Rise of Heraldic, but he just didn't like it, so he just played Pure Heraldic because just for fun. Thank God that gave me a sign of relief because I did not want to deal with the hand rip freaking version. I did not want to deal with Heraldic freaking Rizo. But game one, he does a decent board. Nib kind of did something, but it wasn't that impactful. I broke it. He did challenge. He got rid of my he got rid of my Snake Rain, and I had a Muraku in my hand, right? And guess what I thought that? I thought that Mitsurugi Ritual, and I immediately got the engine back online, and then he had no way to beat it, and he just goes afterwards. Game two. Uh, he goes first. He ends up breaking pretty poorly. He opened really badly in hand. He had two XYZ armor traps and no starter. So I had a really good custom hand. I out of his back row with Lightning Storm. I just did full Mitsurugi Ogdoadic setup, and I just killed him on the crackback. I feel bad, but honestly, it was just whatever. All right, round three, another Rise of Mitsurugi deck. I win the title on that one, and I believe I won that. It was 2-1 or 2-0. That one I will straight up say, I don't remember too much about that end board. I will straight up mention, I don't remember too much about it. So I can't really say too much about it. I think if I remember correctly, I believe we did open. We were able to side deck in a bunch of board breakers, Sunstrike and one anything. I actually don't 100% remember, so I can't give two details, but we did win that round one. Now round four, I play against a guy that I've interacted with a couple times, who goes by Brandon. I've interacted with a decent amount of times. Not a bad dude actually. Good player for sure. We had a very close game three, but he did manage to win it. He won. He beat me with Genesis Castro, and I won the die roll. That matchup, I will straight up say, I do think it sometimes it might be difficult for this deck because unfortunately, I think Fiendsmith Mitsurugi in general probably loses to that build because Unicorn can just instantly out the Fiendsmith engine by just taking out Requiem, and that could be really terrible. But game one, I was able to make an unbreakable board that none of his cards could deal with, so he scoops. Game two, he sets up a decent board. I Droll him because I don't want him to search anymore. But the Droll unfortunately just didn't do anything. That was the one matchup I felt like Droll just wasn't that impactful. So yeah, he just does that. He sets up a decent board. He plays Dragon's Mind, which makes sense because Regenesis has 25 attack and defense monsters. Makes perfect sense. So did that. I tried my best to break his board, but unfortunately, I just could not really break it. Unfortunately, so I just scoop it and we just go to game three. Game three. This is the second time I braked, and I do want to clarify. The second time, this is the only second. This is the last time I braked the entire regional, and this is the one game it actually did matter because I do Droll after doing pre-prep. He draws me. My hand was so bad, was so awkward into Droll. I had Futsu, Hapakiri, Mitsuri Mirror. I had Daybreak and Ash, and I think it was those cards, right? I think there was another card I had in my hand at the time. Oh yeah, it was Solemn Strike. I Now this is where my first big misplay came in. So I do Mr. Ritual to summon Futsu. I do Daybreak to summon 4 tokens on the field because I needed to do something here, right? For some weird reason, I decided to do I normaled Ash so I could get access to the Fiendsmith engine that way. He immediately answers the Fiendsmith engine, which is very terrible for me because he immediately answered it. As you know, I do set up the Fiendsmith engine, I'm pretty sure, right? No, I think he stops it. And I just make IP with a spare token because he ashed it. I think he ashed it Requiem if I remember correctly. So I had no access to the Fiendsmith engine anymore. So I had to like get Engraver. I had to pop that Engraver for that to happen or something. Now here's where the first misplay kicked in, and I got punished hard for the misplay because he summons Regenesis Archfiend. I saw him strike it away, so and he did told me that was a very good Psalm strike because it really made his head awkward. So he summons Druid's Farm, bashes my Requiem away. So now I really have no way to get the stain back out of the graveyard. I have no way to get out of the graveyard anymore. Then then what happens there? So now what happens from that position is he's on his Druid's Worm. He intends to go into main. I do IP and Spitling the token, and I make a Kidna. I make his monster perma 0. Unironically, that actually kind of worked. It actually worked out in my favor because he was forced to null summon his Fua so he can like make IP to deal with my Echidna because he can't attack over it anyway. And that was awkward. And then he drops the one card I was not anticipating him to drop was the Deer Servant. And that made me realize the misplay I made. What I should have actually done was when I made the 4 tokens, what I should have actually done was I should have made IP, then Linkspire, then make Requiem, and then just go from this position. That way, at least now that way, what would have happened was if he was forced to no summon that and then go into IP, then I could have used the Ash to hit the Nadir Servant. That way, all he had left on his board is literally just IP, and he had nothing to continue playing the game. Because what I ended up taunting afterwards was Oracle was actually Engraver. So if I did that, I would have been able to out the IP, set up at least some form of interaction piece, and then just keep playing. I think I could have done that, and if I did that, I think I could have potentially had won the game. Because then I could have done go into this, go into Lizardos, bash the Futsu from the grave, and then just draw one and see if I at least drew like a starter. But unfortunately, that misplay definitely cost me that game. Potentially cost me the game. I don't know if it would have mattered or not. It would have depended on what I drew off I could lose to those. But that's a thing. But the guy was pretty good. We had a very good close game 3. It was definitely winnable. Round 5, I played against Labyrinth. I lost the die roll, but I won 2-0. I broke his endboard of 4 card back row. Managed to break with my hand. And I opened Paradise. I set up Death Spray, and I also set up IP. I was thinking about not saying Death Paradise, but then I realized, why don't I just set down the Paradise just in case it's a backup? So, on his next follow-up turn, he does his Labyrinth shenanigans. He sets up 2 new back row. He cannot activate them, but he does set them up. I immediately flip up Paradise in the end phase, and I wiped out his back row, and he immediately scoops. That was the one game where I normally don't like opening Paradise in my hand, but that was the one game that opening Paradise actually helped me because now the next thing that happens is I would then just OTK him on the crackback because then I just go Requiem sub and just reset the freaking combo, and I could just reset the whole engine. And he had no more interaction left, so then I could just kill him on the crackback. Game 2, my head was super custom. I had Lightning Storm, I had Thrust within my head, I had Papakuri, and I think. Actually, no, wait a second. I think I had Aramasa in my hand plus Prayers, and I think one of the spare. Oh, yeah, and I had Nunu in my hand. Yeah, I had Nunu. I'm not joking when I tell you all this. That hand was super custom. I did get hit by forward fires when I did my searching the drawings to play around Droll. And he does do it. He hits my Murakumai search and hits my Nunu. And he decided from that position was he decided to not do anything. I do Line Store to tend to hit the back row. He tries to do some of the effects. I think that he protects his back row. He does activate the furniture effect. Unfortunately, that was his first mistake. Actually, no, the other card was Snake Rain. He does that first mistake. I punished his furniture effect by going Thrust, and I had Feather Duster, and I took out his remain back row. And then I take out his remain back row, where there was nothing else he could have done, realistically speaking. And after that, I dropped a Snake Rain, I pitched Mystery Ritual, and I killed him, and I OTK'd him from just Snake Rain alone. He immediately scoops, knowing that he just lost the game. Not too bad, all things considered. Round 6, I play against 60 card as mana 1 Force Fiendsmith. I lose 1-2, lost the die, but it was another close game. Game 1 and 2 was like super back and forth. Game 3, I made 2 minor misplays. One of them was kind of minor, but honestly, I don't think it mattered too much. One was that instead of searching Purification, I searched Prayers, and I should have searched Purification because he punished me for not doing that by using Lightning Storm out of my Strike and Warning, which really sucked, but it's fine. So then he does some setup. I had Ash. He summons the Y Force that summons from deck. I took a gamble and I actually decided to Ash that effect. And the reason why is because that actually ended up making a pretty big difference because then all you could do was set up, I believe. Oh, actually, no, wait a second. This was not. No, no. That was like game 2, I think. Game 3 was where it got interesting. I had a pretty decent hand, and I asked his white force guy that would summon from deck. He sends the black Olafs. I had no in my hand, plus a decent hand, but I didn't have ritual spell. So this was where I made my second big major misplay, and I think this one actually definitely costed me the game. Another one that cost me the game. So I normal Noya, I search Water Lily, and I thought about two lines here then. I thought about going Fiendsmith line or go King of the Firms, and the reason why is because I want to force out the Black Ops in the graveyard. Force out because that's his only interaction, at least in his graveyard. I decided to do this dumb doo make King of Firms, and I get hit by Goblins. So I'm like, okay, I'll just use the Nibiru to try to contest his follow up. So he does the About Star. That's his first summon. Sends that, dumps that, gets as me at second summon number 2. But then he hits me with the draw. He draws Set Rotation, which gives him access to the the White Force Field spell. And unfortunately, that gave him way too much gas where the Nib just did not help me at all. The Nib was just way too impactful. It just didn't do anything. So, unfortunately, because of that factor here, though, he pretty much went to the single, just killed me on the card, but I just scooped knowing I lose. Now, for you that might be wondering is, why didn't I just send Nice Orb and just go Fiendsmith line? I thought about that and realized that even if I did this, I don't think it would have mattered anyway, because here's what would have happened, right? The best case scenario for me was if I made Moon Knight, he probably might shotgun the Black Olafs to answer Lacrima, which if that happens, I would have just went Engraver and then linked off make Necrocrypt and then return back Close Moon, summon back Engraver, and then make Caesar in attack position. I think if I did that, I think it probably would have made a big difference because this card against White Force is very strong. But the problem was he made it that high on the top tables. So if he was smart, he would wait for Raccoon to get summoned, and then he would just wait to see what I summon first. And if I summon Engraver and go DD High Caesar, he would bash Black Glass to instantly answer it, and it'd be the same result. Whereas if I decided Shotgun instead of summon Lacrima, then okay, sure, he hits Engraver, but then he just doesn't High Caesar, and the only step he would have to worry about is Paradise. And if he summoned this out, guess what? He would just shotgun the trap called Requiem, so I'd be forced to summon Requiem and pass on it. And the Requiem would set up a Paradise effect, which yes, admittedly, it would be good. The problem is if I did this route, I think Paradise was way easier for him to play rather than the other way around. Now Paradise maybe could have been helpful here though. I could have used it to maybe like out the About Star, but again, as I said beforehand, it probably would not have made that much difference. Because of the fact he drew Set Rotation, which gave him way too much gas, that I feel like even Paradise at the right time would not have made a big difference. But I could be completely wrong. Maybe it would have made a big difference, but I will say that's definitely a huge misplay on my end that cost me that round. But it is whatever though. But it's whatever. The game was very close anyway, so it was definitely a winnable game. Last round was against Mitsurugi Fiendsmith. It was the homie from Calgary that I met at the last regional we played. We played in round 1. He played the 60 card Paleo Trap Grass deck. This time he played same deck as me, but instead of Ogdoadic, he played the Melodious Engine. Unfortunately, both my two hands were super custom made, and both of them I drew Droll. And I drew him every single time. And I was like, I'm so sorry. But he was chill about it, understandable. But we shared some ideas between each other. He's a cool dude. I actually enjoyed talking with him and then just going over theory crafting for matchups for Ogdoadic specifically. So those are my matchups. Getting 17th place at the regional out of 84 players. I'm very happy with how, despite two bad misplays, I played very good all day. I played really good. I only bricked it twice, and only one of them really did matter a lot. And it was just great, man. Like, I played super good. I played perfectly. I played against good variety of matchups, especially a couple top tier decks. Sorry that the video was very long, people, but thank you very much, everyone, for listening to my deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck. If you want to play fiendsmith Mitsurugi with an Ogdoadic engine, I would personally recommend trying out the build I play here. Adjust the build as much, but I'll do a quick review of cards I would take out. Aaron's a maybe take out, but I might keep it. Magneton is definitely getting taken out, and Dark will be taken out for the Duel Link 3 Reptile. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.